Hey guys, hi there, it's Celine, and today is Monday, the 29th, yes, of March 2021. As I start this, probably witchy check-in with some intel, as per the norm, I notice that I sound, to myself at least, quite heavy, quite dramatic or intense or like I have a lot of pain or something like that. And that is actually the case. So there may be tears. Maybe not. Maybe I can sort of choose a different path here. Because I've done enough of that. I've done enough of the Five of Cups drama theatre business for a bit. So witchy check-in, hi, welcome. Number 96. I'm inching up to 100 subscribers, one per month or so. You're very welcome to all the weirdness over here on this channel. And I hope it serves a purpose of some sort. Normally I can talk rather well. So that's why I do this, why I enjoy also having my channel and sharing all the things. I've been doing quite a number of interesting things, also a couple of new things over the past couple of weeks. It's also been, I suppose the word to use would be explosive in terms of interactions with husband, mainly, where we are both learning. We have been together, just to recapitulate here, I am 54 years of age. I should be full on into my menopause or even past it. As it is, there is no such sign of that at all. And so I'm also, if I'm, heavy-handed-ish, in whatever type or form, it is sheer PMS and that type of thing. My husband and I have been together for 34 years. And so that's a long time. And we know each other really well. And we do a lot of growing, sort of psychotherapeutic processing, growing, talking, crying, working through things from our past, both of us together. So it is like the absolute golden marriage, I can tell you. But it's also draining to me often. He gets recharged because his batteries need to be recharged enough to go back to work. I can afford to sit here and feel sorry for myself up to a point. Because after a certain time, you just can't do that anymore. And you just have to pull yourself up by by the bun in my gray hair out of the morass and figure out a way to deal with being me. I have to figure that out. And there have been a couple of nasty, big-ass developments in terms of... The funny thing is, I can actually use knowledge, in this case astrology knowledge, for myself to figure stuff out, to create breakthroughs for myself. I have made a video about what's happened recently. I think it was Thursday, not Thursday last, but 10 days ago, that I posted, that I put that up. It was to do with a new part of astrology to me, dealing with Chiron and my Black Moon together, both of those together in my chart in Pisces, both of them. If you're interested, the intel about that is at the last, bit, in the last bit of that video. I haven't done any follow-up on that so far, because I have posted very little. I've only done, little check-in bits or bits of card things or something like that, on and off, because it was all I could really manage. I have been busy doing other things. So I was actually fine. I was okay working on all sorts of things. But that's in the mind, right? It's my mind just goes cycling through its whatever it's doing. I can even do my journaling and my cards and all the rest of it. Some of it is quite personal, but that doesn't mean that I actually get to the parts that hurt and or are sensitive and or are really hard to live with sometimes. And so the result of that is that I actually surprise myself again by because of something that happened, something that people said outside this house really. I just broke down, and I just once I really break down, it turns out I just go completely off the handle and completely, and that happens so rarely. I was looking for the word there, that I'm still surprised. I'm still in shock. This happened on Saturday. Today is Monday, so we're 48 hours on in time, and I spent the past day and a half or so quite usefully doing all sorts of research and doing all sorts of things and talking to husband, and we just had the weekend. It was fine, and chatting and going into things, but it turns out that the combination of all the psychotherapeutic work on both our sides with the intel and the insights and the changes in behavior for me. I mean, I am turning from this total control freak into someone who is choosing to be much more open and receptive and emotional in a manner that is natural, that is actually natural for me. I'm trying to not repress myself anymore. So there. It's a lot of work, And because I practice Tumo as well, my Tibetan meditation energy work technique, that's going really well. Also, in different levels, there's different levels about Tumo. I'll go into the details of the Tumo process again in a separate, progress report video at some point. Maybe in the near future. I don't know. I've done a lot of progress reports and things about this technique for quite a while, and I just felt it was enough for a while at least to I don't, other than the things that you're hearing me talk about today, I don't really have a ton of like energy work new developments, except there's a lot of detoxing going on still. It does seem to be better, though. It does seem to be improving in the sense that once detoxed, that part of you is actually cleansed. And so I think that I can actually see that there's quite a bit of improvement in terms of how I feel all over, There's a general sense, but then again, I've also been sitting in the sun. It's really nice and sunny outside. We've got a couple of really nice days, so I've actually decided that I was going to be having a sort of a mini holiday for myself, where I wear my aquamarine stone, which is a happy maker, for me. And as a consequence of that, I just felt like doing a witchy check-in with all my things and see where it takes me, just because I have to explain all the things, and just the explaining, for me it works. And I guess there you go, it's maybe there's occasionally, you find nuggets of personal truth in everybody's videos often, so you can find truth in weird places, so there's hoping, so that's the most motivation. So Tumo has been going, steadily forward, progressing bit by bit. I get more energy in parts of me that haven't had enough energy for a very long time. A lot of that has had detoxing as a result that is a bit painful or sore, or you can tell that it's just it's not so pleasant, and you have to pay attention to your hydration and things like that. And if you do that, then you end up being fine. And I'm more or less feeling, more and more confident that as I continue doing this, the all the bad stuff will finally drain away, and I will have access to a lot more of my, you know, stuff in here physically and vibrationally. And so that will make me stronger and richer in many ways. So that feels really good. I can tell that that's happening. So the other side to the story is that there's a lot of emotional, I don't know, insecurity, I suppose, that's come out that I never really faced in this way before, because I either depended on myself to do a thing to prevent feeling that way, you know? Yeah. So that's what happens with breakthroughs, you know? Emotionally, you actually change. And in a sense, what happens is you change in the direction of more vulnerability and more receptivity. That's what happened for me anyway. And I have less control over things. And the more I try to keep control of things, the more I get, the more tense I get. So the basic reason for my troubles in this particular instance, like Saturday and the weeks and months before that, has been around my husband. And there's a whole weird, interesting, crazy story that has to do with that, with him, that I have gone into a couple of times on my channel in the past couple of months. But I don't think I've gone into it in a lot of detail. And also I think that at the time I didn't really know enough, and I certainly didn't know enough about how it is affecting us, both of us. So here it is. What we found, and this had also it basically harked back to a moment where we were looking at astrology again, at birth charts. I'm not going to go into any of that detail because I don't know any of it by heart. I've all got it all printed out and I can reference it if I need it. But at the moment, that's not at all what I'm going for here. It has to do with it. What it seems like is that my husband is a reincarnation, in a way, of an ancestor of his. This is something that actually seems to happen. So I'm saying seems here because I'm not too sure of any of this stuff, and I don't think you really can be sure of any of this stuff. So it's impossible to pinpoint really what happened, to measure any of it, you can get some kind of intel from birth charts and things, which is why we did all that, But the thing is that he's been struggling really badly, really intensely, deep inside, with a conflict inside of himself, where on the one hand he is very open to this connection, much more than you can put words to. There's so much more connectedness in this whole process going on than you could ever put words to, in whatever form. If you start writing today and you were to write for 3 weeks, 8 hours a day, he started yesterday. He did start writing honestly from his heart, from his mind, about what it feels like and what is happening to him for the first time, actually. So after having me egging him on to do that for as long as I can remember, really, by now he actually got himself to a position, to a point where he said, okay, so I'm going to do this. And just do a page. Just do a page. But just tell it like it is. Give the words, choose to, get words for what's happening, because I can't really look into his brain. I can't really look into his heart. I can sense a lot of what's happening for him, but it gets translated through my own, weirdness, of which there's quite a lot. And I end up reacting, of course, to tension and suppressed emotions and fear. Fear is bad. Fear is something you don't want in your house, not all the time. And he was fearful because he had to deal with this conflict. And it turns out that at the moment, what it looks like, the conflict is about, on the one hand, him needing a sense of being a sovereign human being, so independent, an agent, independent of everybody else. And on the other hand, there he's got an enormous capacity for connection, like I just said. And he has absorbed, he's got, I don't know, an image comes to mind of something I can't really place, but it's like a machine with a lot of cogwheels in it. And some of those cogwheels belong or have belonged to other people in the past, before he was born, way before, you know. So it's something like that, something along those lines. That actually feels more or less right to be seeing it that way. So him having a lot of work and having been kept really busy and not knowing how to deal with any of this really, he's just felt a sense of fear and confrontation and not knowing what's expected of him and what it really means. And we do not have any more information about any of those people. Turns out that this person, there's a whole big story here. So if I'm just looking over there because there's a mailman, but he's going next door. Fine. Okay. Beep. Next door's doorbell is really low, really quiet. The thing is, it's a complex story. We've ordered a book, which I will show to you once I've got it. It's about children remembering past lives. It's like a big, big fat ass book, 355 pages, if I remember correctly, that I ordered yesterday on a local, variant of Amazon. And I don't know when it gets here. It'll probably take a couple of weeks to get here. It's by Ian Stevenson, Children Remembering Past Lives, something like that. And it's one of the big research projects in this area, in this field. So that's interesting. And we felt after a couple of, goes at the internet that this is probably one of the best things to be getting, where you'd actually get, hang on, that's my doorbell. Just a second. Yo. Okay. So we've got this book now that's coming. The thing is, the situation for him is entwined with another concept, and that's that of the womb twin survivor. And my husband's a womb twin survivor. It's something that by now you can actually Google it, look it all up, and it's a really interesting and potentially scary field to be looking at. Let me see whether I've got this straight, actually. Because I don't want to have I hate slanted horizons in the field. This should be okay. Sorry if that was, off there. There's twins in the family going back as well. Not that many, but this child who died at 1.5 years of age, that we are thinking has a strong connection to my husband personally, emotionally in some form or other. It's really hard to explain. You can't really pinpoint it in terms of the birth chart either. I haven't found anything like obvious repeating patterns in their charts, like this boy's chart and my husband's chart. It doesn't work like that. It's really strange. So a lot of this is intuitive and emotional and deep. And this boy only lived to be 1.5 years old, and his father lost his twin brother after a month. This is happening in the 19th century, so health conditions were quite different then. And there's been progress in the sense that last week we managed to do a sort of a joint meditation together where his, what is that? His great grandfather, I think, showed up. So that's the original twin survivor, if you like, the father of the little boy who also passed away, then got another child who became my husband's grandfather. So his great grandfather, yes, that's right. He showed up and he said that the thing that he kept saying is there was never any time. There was never any time to deal with emotions, to feel like I'm going to take time for myself now. I'm going to take time off to talk about this, to write this down. There was never any time. It was really simple, a really simple message that came through. And it was a great moment for both of us to sort of become aware of this. And this has had quite a bit of an impact on my husband, who's tends to be, or tended, I must say, to be always in a dreadful hurry and to always have this very strong sense in his life and in his work in particular that there's never enough time to get everything done. So to that extent, it made perfect sense. Everything was sort of falling, the jigsaw pieces were all falling into place like that quite nicely. I've managed to combine that session with which is like a kind of a soul retrieval meditation action where I ask for time to come to my husband. So from his own soul. It turns out afterwards I had this really strong sensation, which I still have, that it's an important part of how we incarnate into our bodies, into our lives nowadays, actually is about your relationship with time. More than, it's a different level to the relationship you have with matter or the elements or the archetypes. I'm trying not to get all esoteric here. We are made up of relationships, and relationships to people is one part of it, and it tends to just completely cloud over everything else. For me, my life has been a bit different. I've been isolated for always, all of my life really. And so I've become, very sensitive to other layers of being, if you like. And which is why I sit here at home talking to you in the middle of the Monday, rather than being off at work packing cartons for something, for money. Relationship to money is one element, but it's really all about how we manifest time, what time really means, whether we use time to our advantage, to the advantage of those around us, to the advantage of the world, and so on and so forth. I find this fascinating. I'm through my own process. It's so hard to summarize all this kind of stuff in just 3 sentences, but I'm trying, in my own process, there have been moments often where I have been at least cheered up by the notion, where it has given me a lot of support, I should say it that way, the notion that there is a soul part of us, soul, S-O-U-L, part of us that sits apart from the body and apart from what we consider our self in the body. I haven't talked about this in quite a while, I notice now. I have talked about this in the past, but not often, because it is really difficult to talk about. I tend to consider the soul dimension, the soul world, if you like, to be where the interesting bits of our lives end up afterwards or even during. You know, it's soul itself doesn't use time. It's timeless, more or less, nearly, at least compared to what's going on over here on the planet and in the body, in the manifestation. And now it turns out, to me at least, that's just how I feel, this is how I look at it, that in the soul dimension, there is, that's where our whole way of doing time, so to speak, originates. It originates in there. And we are given time by our own souls. You know? So yeah. So I thought that might at least be interesting, you know? The soul, I want to add to this, is a personal dimension. So your soul dimension is different from mine. There are different types of connections between souls going on up there, so to speak. It's just, you know, in hyphens because it's all around us, it's everywhere. But and it's personal. So that's how you can tell, that's also how you can ask for something. If you're sincere about, I really need more than anything else to have whatever, you know, more time, to have more heart, to have more words, to have more, you can ask your own soul. I think that when people are, you know, fortunate or lucky in this respect, in the sense that they have a sense, an inner sense of that they were given earlier on, and they can do this, they do this regularly, they often they will say, I talk to God. I don't think you necessarily, I'm not saying it's wrong what they're saying. It's an important way of saying it, because if you say, I'm talking to God, you're saying, I'm talking to somebody completely different, out of this world. That's important, because that is actually how I perceive the soul dimension also. I don't think God is directly active on us. I think God may be active in the soul world. I think there's a lot of this world and maybe other worlds where you're just put in there with your charge, with your capabilities, with your, you know, your assets and your problems and all the rest of it, and you're just asked to go ahead and sort it out. But you can ask for help. And if that's sincere, if you know, you can tell by yourself, you know, inside yourself, in your own mind, you can tell, okay, now that would really be something if I could, you know, have help with. And there's especially in Western culture, there's a bad, what's the word? It has a bad rap, asking for help. We're all supposed to be really independent and really self-sufficient, and we're supposed to do it all ourselves. And it's not always possible. It's not always really helpful. So yeah, so asking for help from upstairs can be a really good idea, and it doesn't really matter what you call it, unless you're really interested in knowing about these things. Apparently I am, and this is my version of things right there. So I've been going through this process quite a bit myself. I don't often ask for help or do a soul interaction kind of a meditation. I should probably do it more often, but I tend to feel quite a lot of the time also, let me figure this out for myself. Let me just try to, find ways to cope, any old how. Anyway. So the point of this whole thing, and the point of the whole loss of the twin brother theme, which was what I was talking about just now, is a very recurring theme, and it's painful, and it has to do with identity and self on the one hand and with somebody extremely close to you on the other. So there's a dichotomy there. There's it is quite a conflict, quite a struggle between those two sides of one person. And that's what my husband's been in. This is the same kind of thing has happened in 2017 when we first discovered, so that's just a few years ago, right? When we first discovered this whole vanished twin syndrome thing, the whole WIM twin survivor intel was brought to us more or less by whatever an accident really is, it was just brought to us. And I started reading about this stuff, and I felt like, in that sense, it was really comparable to the moment in the end of December recently, last, because it was like I was reading this stuff and it was like all these connections going off at the same time, like, okay, so this is my husband. I was reading these lists of traits, personality traits on the internet for womb twin survivors, what they tend to be like in terms of personality. It's like they're always missing a crucial part in themselves. And nobody used to know about this stuff, right? Nobody ever had a sense of, and if there was a child that was actually born, there would, of course, it would be different in the sense that people would actually know that there was a child. But often in the case of womb twin survivors, that's not even the case. The twin disappears really early on, like it happened for my husband. There was never a notion of there having been twins. And it's actually a bit later, I think in 2018, that I had a conversation with his cousin, I think it is, who is a grown woman who has 2 children. And she said that she'd been pregnant with twins for a short while, and that has come to an end by itself. And she'd been really worried up until the point where we talked about our twin business. And because she'd been, searching around and asking family members all over, looking for more twins, and there hadn't been any. So this is a hidden theme that runs through society, that runs through populations and families, and it's really relevant. So that's been at that point in 2017. Let me go back to that for a second. My husband was first confronted with all this information, with these list of personality traits that patched through to him, and he went through it a couple of times, and he just had to come to the conclusion that this was his situation, this was his life that they were talking about. And so that took quite a bit of digging, and then, going on summer holiday, he got a chance to do a bit more thinking and reading and writing and stuff. And it just became this, it was like it surfaced, the emotion surfaced, and the same thing has happened now in January. And it's like the same thing for me, really, where hidden, dark emotions way beyond your control, way beyond anything you could ever imagine, after some preparation and some searching and, moving around inside yourself, for some reason the focus goes to that subject, to that terrain, to that area, and all of a sudden it just, the consciousness layer that carries the actual emotions, the actual situation as it was, it just blooms to the surface and goes up and opens up like that. And your world is completely changed and everything's different. It's really frightening when that's happening. And especially when, in this particular case, in the case of the womb twin survivor thing in 2017, we knew what we were talking about. And even then, because I had this soul dimension kind of experience, I could help my husband And there was one moment where this happened, and it was really intense. I've talked about this before also, same thing, but you'll never be able to find it if you look for it, I think, unless there is a playlist about twins and things where also this video will also go in there. He was where he had this moment where all this emotion came to the surface all of a sudden, and I felt it, and it was so painful, and he was in such a nightmare contortion of struggle with this soul pain inside him. I felt like, okay, so if this is his life, then I wouldn't be surprised if this part of his brother, the soul part of his brother, some remnant of his brother is still around. It's still close by. He should be close by. He shouldn't. There should be a way to connect the two again. And don't ask me how I did that, but I actually did that. I found a sun-like energy, a bright energy that was actually quite different from my husband, the way I know him. Also different from the soul dimension energy. It's like a different person, really. But they're not a person, they're just a self. They're a really pure, very simple self. And there's a lot more behind that. But what I needed to see at that point was this really pure, simple, like an angel figure, if you like. But there was no figure, there were no wings, there was no face. It was just a little sun-like identity, like a hi, I'm here kind of a. And it was really quick. All this went, I wasn't even thinking about it. I just asked, again, same move as with all the other things. I asked for an intervention from upstairs, please, because this guy he's falling to pieces here. We can't have this. He's okay having emotions, but we need help. This is something that we can't handle just like that, him and me. Not together, not without help. And then this energy showed up, this person that was his brother showed up. It's really specific. It's a really specific vibration that I suppose I pick up with my third eye somehow in here, somewhere. And he was really friendly, and he was totally positive and totally supportive of anything positive that my husband chooses to do or think or feel. And he didn't want him to be desperate over the loss of his twin. Certainly not. And I didn't talk about any of this until much later. All I did was make a vibrational bridge, like a self bridge, if that makes any sense, between the energy of the brother and my husband sitting next to me. I just connected the two again. I wouldn't have thought any more of this hadn't it been for the fact that the rest of that day, I will never forget it if I live to be 100, my husband was in the opposite state of joy. He was nearly hysterical with joy, having regained this connection. So it worked, whatever it was that I really did. And he had stars in his eyes. He was like, oh, like the light came out of all the parts of him. And we went to town from the camping place where we were into a museum, and we visited the museum, and we saw some really great medieval art. And he was ecstatic, and he was going lyrical about these paintings that he saw, and he was identifying no end with all the saints and the paintings, and he was just it was like a balloon. I had to just keep hold of the string all day long. It can be really funny. These kinds of things can be funny sometimes, which I think is really healthy because, boy. So fast forward to 2020, 2021, December, January, very early, was when we got into this whole, chart analysis of this, going back into his family, finding more ancestors, finding birth records with actual times of birth even. So I have really complete charts for, I don't know, half a dozen people or so that are his ancestors, where there's actually this set of twins, where one twin passed away after a month, a child of theirs who passed away after a year and a half, and another child who became my husband's grandfather, who is a very normal kind person. And I noticed also earlier that there is people who are the sort of the there's like a watershed line in those people in that family between those who are status quo workers and keeping the show on the road, making money, keeping the economy alive kind people, who do not hardly ever do any original thinking unless it is for the business or something like that. And then there's a couple of others, like my husband and his mother, who were really much more into new consciousness type things, which is how my husband survives his life with me, because, duh. So how to turn all this into an asset. I swear to God. So this was a bit much. All of this, it bloomed. It came from the nether world. It came from Niflheim. It came from the land of the dead into this one. Yes, that's what it did. So it was scary for both of us. It was so scary, and because my husband's really busy, he didn't have enough time to just feel what it felt like. It was using cards and doing immense tarot spreads and things that actually turned things around again. And that was last weekend, just so 9 days ago, or even longer ago, I don't know, just a couple of weekends ago anyway, that he did 2 big ass tarot spreads, one of which he sort of made up on the basis of, with my help, from just a little spread that gave some sense of connection to different people, and then what it felt like, and then what it's supposed to be doing, and how you're supposed to be looking at it, and all those, each one of those questions got a position and a card, and so on. And then the next day, Sunday, he did a dark inner child reaction type spread, which is something I have actually made a video about as well, which is like a lengthy session where you do spread questions where there's 2 cards nearly for each question, one for your objective everyday daylight self, so to speak, and one for your dark inner child. So how you try to live without your inner child, basically, type of a description is what you get from that spread and from those cards. It's extraordinarily powerful, and we pull it out once a year or so since we've, gotten around to doing that, because it's a massive powerhouse. It just sets your teeth on edge. You get things from that are just just insane. I will dig up a video to what am I, 3/4 of an hour. It's important stuff to me. This has been I'll put the link to the description of the Dark Inner Child video into the description below, so you can have a look at that if that's what you want to do. So recently there have been a couple of moments where this had to be all this emotional. You have access to the dark world in this way, in a way that you didn't really ask for, not to this extent. You wanted like 10%, you wanted the homeopathic helping, and what you get is a full dose. So, it's like, this takes some time to deal with. It takes energy, it takes brain space, it takes talking about things instead of watching telly. And then it takes going to the telly and watching silly movies because you just have to siphon it all out of your brain again, because you just can't live in that level of intensity the whole time, which is what we've been getting really good at. And after a while, it's just not healthy anymore. So for me, it's been incredibly intense. I have had, I suppose, to surrender quite a lot of my newfound receptivity to this whole issue, to this whole twin and ancestor thing, where also I was really worried because I just didn't have enough information. I don't know what the children died of. I don't know any more than this. The people that we used to be able to ask questions of, they're gone, they're deceased. People that are left over aren't interested or don't have any more intel than we do. You just have to, in these matters, you just have to find the intel wherever you possibly can and keep it all. So I've got a book, look at the cute book with the dragon, where I put my own past life, because I've been down that road myself. It's a very different story, my own past life story. Notes about that in here. I've talked about my own past life experiences and soul retrieval experiences a lot before, and there's I think a playlist about that as well. Past lives, yes, there's a playlist. Duh. I'm tired, I'm pooped, my brain needs to be out in the sunshine, but I need this as well. So make myself choose to talk just a little bit longer. I have lists of things that connect me to, so actually working on the twin thing with the lists of character traits, like I said just now, has helped me and analyze my own soul retrieval story in a similar way as well. So looking at things that are like a bit more systematic, and so separating out the bits that connect me to something in a way that isn't the same as the things that connect me through my parents, to that may be a bit similar. There's circus and travelers, and they're two different things. The circus connection in the past with my ancestors is rather remote compared to the rest of which is just not Dutch, and very much Netherlands, and quite predictable. Predictable hobbit, me, yeah. No, not anymore. It used to be. So doing this, and I actually did this in this book a bit earlier, before, a couple of years ago. I started, and I started printing out stuff and doing things, and by now I've sort of redone the book. So this is what it looks like at the moment, with actual images that are stills from a video about the history of the traveler people. That is a fascinating video that I've talked about this in a past lives, a long video about my realization that there's this past life thing going on with the travelers. Also linked in the description. I will have to remember to put that in as well. This is a bit of Indian caste history. You won't be able to make it out. Doesn't really matter that much, but it has to do with India and incense making, and there's all that stuff. So these are a couple of the original notes that were in the book with the list drawing. This is a new chapter that I put in. I discovered a channel that has Indian astrologically inspired palmistry. Little videos about markings on the hand. Fascinating. I'll put the link to the channel in the description, no doubt about it. This is just a little chart of planetary and other dispositions on the hand, like so. I did a Wikipedia page, a couple of pages that has the descriptions to these different things and what they mean, and the lines and what they mean, and so on, and a bit of history in there. And then I did a lengthy analysis of my own hands, left and right, like so, for a couple of pages. that has, you know, what I see in my own hands. So there's a significant difference between my left and my right hand in terms of what those lines are doing. And it's really interesting. So that was interesting by itself. Anyway, I'm not really deep enough into this. It's just been, you know, too short really for me to get, too short a time to get to know all this stuff really well. But I've, you know, got more pages of notes that I've reprocessed everything and just got a sense of, okay, so this part is genetic, that it has a connection to this type of content and the emotional value it has for me. And of course, for me, there's quite a discrepancy between the past life soul retrieval information that I got and my actual life. But there are links. If there weren't any links, which I'm sure happens for people, you know, it becomes that much harder to deal with. But I think we are connected all over to all sorts of things. And if you have a chance to find connections inside in your normal life to the weirdness, to it makes you that much broader and that much more capable of, you know, understanding all this stuff. So there's going to be quite a bit more in this booklet also about husband, his whole, you know, his whole setup. I'm going to put in here as well, probably in just a second part or something. Quite interesting to do. I'm going to buckle this up. I'm not going to share any of my cards at the moment because I think they are past, you know, past date by now. These were the cards up to making the video. So I'm going to pull a few new cards for myself. And I've been using the Oracle of Nostradamus again, just for the heck of it. And humility and so on. It's funny, as well as the Mystic Masters Tarot, which I love to pieces. So all during the weekend I had really nice cards that kept me company. So thank you for listening to me. Thank you so much. I'm going to buckle this up right now and go back out in the sun and maybe have me a boiled egg, you know, something like that. And see where we go from here. But there will be sunshine and birds and, you know, blossoms and things. Spring is here. Lovely. Thank you again. See you next time. And thank you so much for watching. You're the best. Okay? Keep well. See you then. Bye-bye.